Hello, how are you two doing?
Doing well.
Yes.
Doing well. I'm so excited to have you on the show. And this has been a long time coming for me, but I do know there were some nuptials that were exchanged not too long ago. So I'm like, let me not bombard them. But I'm just excited to have Philip and Chavelle here on from Brand St. Louis. And welcome to each of you who are listening in your respective places in the world. Welcome to another conversation in the nick of time. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and this platform is powered by Sparkman Pathway to Career and also KSCL 690 Jubilee right here, headquartered in the Midwest. I'm just excited to have them supporting what we call our virtual global classroom, where we bring experts such as Chavelle and Phillip to come and educate us on what's trending and what we need to know. And today we are embracing a hot topic when it comes to minority and underrepresented populations within the entrepreneurial space. This is not something I know that we are just stumbling upon, considering the state of the world that we find ourselves in today. But as you know, I am a true academic also, so I have data to support why what they do is so important. Chevelle, Philip, how you doing?
Doing well.
Doing well.
Good, good. Let's jump right in. And Chevelle, I'll start with you. Who are you and what's your area of expertise? I have a little few notes, but I want you to tell us, who you are and what you do.
Hi, I am Chavelle Sangokoya. Happy to be here today on the show. So who am I? So first I'll say that I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. I think that plays a big part in who I am, just in terms of the community experience in New Orleans. A great love of arts and music, and has definitely shaped me as an individual. From a professional standpoint, I have an engineering background. I have dabbled in operations management and process improvement. So those are my passions and skill sets. And then I am co-founder of Brand of St. Louis, happily married to Philip Sangokoya here. And about 7 years ago, we co-founded Brand of St. Louis, which is a social enterprise focused on helping early stage entrepreneurs really plug into entrepreneur resources and grow their business. So that's a lot of different aspects of me, but yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Philip, your turn.
Sure. So, similar to Chevelle, born and raised in Louisiana. I want to give a shout out to Baton Rouge.
Oh,
Son of Nigerian immigrants. And, really, I have a passion for entrepreneurship. I came up to St. Louis here to go to Washington University in St. Louis. That's where I met my now wife, Chevelle, here. And, I think for me, I'm always a visionary around how do we really bridge the gap to help support entrepreneurs and really support racial equity as a whole. And I think I've been blessed to be in a space in the business banking industry and commercial lending industry to really hone financial skills that can really help to support that effort, just with an intentional focus on how do we bring the right services, the right products, the right opportunities to minority and specifically Black-led businesses, knowing all of the historic context that we have in this country around what has gotten in the way of those businesses thriving.
right, right. Now, I do remember it's been a few years back. I had the honor of sitting in one of your classes because not only are you like behind the scenes kind of making magic happen for represented populations in entrepreneurship, but you were actually teaching skill sets. I'm sure you're probably still doing the same, but a few years ago, I had to raise my hand and I was in that audience learning how to navigate social media, considering it is such an instrumental part of what we do as entrepreneurs. How has the instructional component of your business developed, and where are you with that today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the instructional aspect of our business, we really have wrapped into one of our new programs, which is the Startup League Rewards program. So we spend a lot of time educating entrepreneurs on the resources that are out there that they can leverage within their business to grow. So We put together a newsletter where we summarize resources and events, but we have taken our instructional content more to a one-on-one forum
Okay.
where we have developed tools for entrepreneurs to leverage when they're working on their business strategy and growth. But then also we do a lot of coaching with them one-on-one in sessions.
And a lot of that pivot really came through a lot of our conversations through focus groups with Black entrepreneurs who told us, hey, I have all these resources, I see everything out there, but I need someone to kind of hold my hand and kind of serve as that advisory board so that I can really work on my business. Because a lot of times solopreneurs is what we tend to call them with smaller teams. They're working in their business all the time, not necessarily on their business. And we can relate to that as a startup entrepreneur support organization.
Yeah, and we still do workshops every now and then in the community, probably at least 3 times a year, navigating in this virtual space. But we still try to get out there and do our workshops. But we have tried to do it also on a one-on-one basis.
That is so interesting because, and you answered my next question in regards to the why there was a pivot. Understanding that, like, when I consider the class I sat in, which focused on social media, what social medias are even available, what social media platforms, understanding which one speaks to our audience. See, I remember all this because you don't need to be everywhere if your audience isn't there. Also mapping out a content schedule, which is, and can change. That was the other thing. Like, you get so locked into what it is that you have done that sometimes, and then you're also working in the business. Even as, a consultant, you get so busy doing the actual work. So you are, publicist, you're the facilitator, you're the accountant, having to create, these decks and invoices. And I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. But to be able to operationalize some of those components and building technology, oh my God. You may think that, like, oh, this is basic information that you're sharing with people. Let me tell you, I'm still using those tools you all taught. Still using them.
Happy to hear it. Happy to
Yes,
hear it.
yes. And so this pivot into this one-on-one to where you can have a more impactful effect when it comes to those who you are assisting. What has been a challenge in regards to taking that shift?
Yeah, I think one challenge that comes to mind for me is really getting more hyper-focused on what do the entrepreneurs need. And, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, we've really focused on, they need capital. They need capital in addition to technical assistance. I'm really excited because our Startup League Rewards program now incentivizes entrepreneurs to really engage in the resources in the St. Louis ecosystem. And we award points that convert to cash. So we're really getting behind the incentivizing approach around knowing that those small wins of applying to a grant program or applying to an incubator program will help the businesses grow while we're working with them on a one-on-one basis. And we know Black entrepreneurs, there's limited capital out there, limited friends and family network. And how do we help supplement that in a way that we feel like is really going to encourage them in the right direction to do the right behaviors?
Would you say that funding is the primary issue or barrier, I should say, for those who you are assisting?
I would say funding is definitely one of the big barriers. I think something that ties closely to funding is capacity, right? So I think that funding, helps bring capacity because you can hire people. Maybe if you're, working a job and running your business on the side, funding might help you kind of start taking a step away from your full-time job. But besides funding, I would also, just reiterate that capacity is a struggle. And that's why we try to lend our assistance and hours into helping businesses walk through, their social media strategy, like you highlighted, or their overall business strategy, so that we could just add a little extra capacity and even skill sets to their organizations, because they have small teams a lot of the time, right? Like one or two co-founders, maybe one or two contractors, if that. So just lending and the funding and capacity areas where we've been focused.
You mentioned skill sets that we may be a little deficient or not as confident in those areas. What are some of those skill sets that you've noticed in the last couple years?
Yeah, I would say sales strategy is an opportunity
Yeah.
where businesses are definitely challenged sometimes. Entrepreneurs, and I'm guilty of this too, I'm an entrepreneur. Sometimes we love our product so much that we forget that starting a business and running a business is really about building a relationship with someone else, your client, and really understanding where they are along the sales journey to the point where they're buying from you or they are donating to you or whatever behavior you want from them and in your relationship with them. So sales strategy is definitely an opportunity. Accounting and finance.
We have to do that.
And,
Yes.
Even to that point, it goes to team building, right? Because if you're not that subject matter expert, how do you have the self-awareness to realize what you're not great at and find teammates, find other partners to help you, even if it's service providers, finding those right relationships so that you can focus on what you do well and not have to be the jack of all trades.
Yeah, but that's what we do, right? I mean, one thing I know what was so interesting as we were coming out of 2019 into 2020, it was just a robust movement almost, where I know those in my circles and in places that I tread in, everyone was having 2020 clear vision. Yeah. And they knew that they were called to start a business, and they knew that they were supposed to just jump. And a lot of people jumped. And I don't mean jumped and started the company. I mean, jumped, left their jobs, started a company, and not to down that, because I had my share, my season of doing that. However, I did plan, and I saved at least a solid year of income from my employer. I paid off everything. So I didn't have to worry about that. I also paid for a lot of extra little fun stuff that I wanted before I left. So it's like having a plan, but a lot of the people are back at work. Mm-hmm. So what kind of like advice do you have before I get to like some numbers and some data, like for those of us who are now back dual rolling it? We had this clear vision, but now life happened, pandemic happened, social injustices continue to happen. How do we navigate that?
Yeah.
What are some tips that you share? Just a couple with those who are dual rolling it.
Yeah, it's such a great question, and I would say my mind goes to a couple of things. The first is, if you are looking to eventually find some balance either between your job and your business, or eventually go back out there and do your business full time, is really understanding your expenses very, very well so that you know your break even point. And then when you're working on your sales strategy and understanding your revenue, what you need to make to basically handle your expenses long term. I think that that's something that even I am working constantly to do better, so that I can make more strategic choices in my business that will long term help me balance my full-time job or in my business, or have a plan, like you said, in 2 or 3 years, I know based on the numbers that I will be here. The other thing that I would say, and then I'll turn it over to Phillip, is, managing your time is something that's challenging when you're balancing.
Can you please like post after this? What's the solution to that?
Yes, right now we have a pretty good system that we're using, and we're introducing it to our clients right now. We have a daily huddle. or at least multiple times a week, we have a huddle. And this is something that those who, work in operations and corporate, you might be familiar with, a daily management system or a huddle practice. But basically, we've really outlined, okay, what do we need to do? What do we need to talk about to ensure that we are making steady progress towards our goals? And we just take, 15 to 30 minutes a day, and we just look at those items and say, okay, are we feeling green here? Are we feeling like, maybe we're a little bit of red? We have some, obstacles to overcome. And then we
what's the green, red, yellow? What's that stand for?
So right now we basically evaluate like how many open items we have kind of in our court to move that item forward to the next level. So if we feel like, our operations is really humming, nothing's broken, we're green. But let's say that, one of our applications that we use is holding up orders. Then we'll say, okay, this system is red. Who do we need to reach out to fix this? What skills do we need? So we go through that kind of conversation multiple times a week. We try to do it every day, but we know that that's not always possible, but we try to do it at least 3 times a week. And then we say, okay, based on our status, how do we update how we navigate in the next day to 2 days to week, just to make sure that even when we can't meet throughout the day, that at least we're each working independently on what's important.
Okay.
Yeah, and from my background, in banking, I'm always thinking about passive streams of income, right? So even if you're in your career and you've gone back to that 9-to-5 job, thinking about investments, whether it's real estate investments, whether it's stock investments, right? I think that's something that we've kind of made some attempts and trying our hand into getting into real estate. And, it's something where it's all about passive income. We used to play cash flow all the time, and it's a great game that really makes you think more about passive streams of income so that you're not always focused on just what you're doing in your 9-to-5, knowing that ties a lot of your time up, And the other thing for me would be, don't just think about your career as just that 9-to-5, right? Find something that you can build on and learn from, because those skills will always translate into a future entrepreneurship endeavor or a future opportunity for passive income. So never, discount what you're learning on the job and the industry that you're in and the networks that you're building in those roles.
Right. You both are speaking my language in regards to making time to review, because that is something that we even do in higher ed, to where we come together as a team, even if it's 15 minutes, we do that daily, same time. Every now and then, yes, like you said, there were times when we won't get a chance to connect. Now it's not face to face, but even virtually things come up, other meetings, priorities. However, there is not a week that we don't do it at least a couple times. And while it is sometimes like, oh my God, like I really don't have time to stop for this, there's so much, like there's a fire that is kind of rebuilt, and that flame is fanned in regards to what it is that you're doing to contribute. And so having the team, and I would say, even if you're a solopreneur, find a team, like you were saying, who are those partners and collaborators that you're working with? It's a sense of accountability. And then also you're able to share those resources, and that could just be resources of thought, resources of strategy. We often put a lot of emphasis on funding, but Chavelle, as you mentioned just earlier, a few moments ago, how funding is a barrier, but there are other things, systems and strategies that also, especially when we don't know. And I think that is why it's so important to have this collaborative effort that sometimes we resist as people of color. We just so protective of what it is that we do, but it's like we're hurting ourselves by not having a Chavelle and a Phillip show up to give us some guidance, because we're not going to know it all. We're not going to know it all. And then Phillip, oh my gosh, yes, this multiple streams of income, it is trending on a hashtag. However, no, we need to get serious about it. And I always say, don't quit. Now that I've experienced what I've experienced, don't quit your job so fast. Find ways to get those stretch assignments, because your job is just an internship. It's a paid internship to me. and you figure out how you can make that work for you. And then when you do, it becomes your first investor in your business, because we start these businesses. I'm gonna be honest, you all have a strength in regards to getting um, us entrepreneurs thinking about finances and funding and having that seed money. But that is not what we're thinking. We are just like, I'm passionate. I have an idea, and this is what I want to do. I don't even have a plan. Do you think we need business plans moving forward?
Maybe not the traditional
Right.
business plan, but you definitely need to meet to duke it out and talk about it at, at least, I would say, once a year, and renew your strategy. Like, maybe it doesn't have to be 10 pages, but at least a few pages, at least a couple pages.
And
Yeah.
every year we should be revisiting it.
I would say
Okay.
so, if not quarterly.
Okay.
You know, I just think that having a direction, you know, like just making sure that you know the direction that you're going. And I think that that's a value that a business plan has. And then also documentation, right? Like having things written down to refer back to, you know, I think that there's just so much value in the little things, so that you can say, oh yeah, you know, I thank my past self so often for helping out my current self, you know, my future self, and thinking about, you know, just preparing myself for the moments when they come. I think that's where business plans can really help out.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, right, everything is changing in this world so much quicker now. So if you don't update that plan at least annually, if not more, the environment's changing, right? So if you hadn't thought about your digital strategy, you know, how long would it have taken to revise that strategy once COVID-19 pandemic hit? And, you know, you just have to be always thinking that, how do you get ahead to kind of beat the market, if you will, to be more competitive in whatever industry, whatever business you're working on?
Now, your advice to those, because this is interesting, like many of us don't honestly have business plans. And what we call a business plan, it may be just some goals we wrote down. We really don't have an alignment in regards to what the demand is, who our client is. We just know we want to make some shea butter. And I made it, and all my family said it is good and it works on their skin. Who should I be partnering with if I'm just working by myself to help me be accountable outside of Brand St. Louis? But what kind of advice would you give someone, especially now that you're saying a couple times a year? And I agree. If we didn't learn a lesson this past like year and a half to understand things can change in a blink of an eye, and you better be ready to shift and pivot. And how do you incorporate technology? Because many of us, when we say use of technology, it is Instagram. It is not other platforms to keep us organized. What insight or advice would you give to someone who is a solopreneur in regards to updating this information?
Yeah, I think some advice that I think has worked well for us is for solopreneurs, especially if you're looking for like funding and educational programs. When you apply to something, that's an opportunity to go back to your plan, or whether it's an executive summary or a business model canvas, just a place where you outline your business strategy. When you apply for grants, and business development programs and accelerators, that's a good time to kind of pull up your executive summary or business plan and say, okay, I said that this is what my business is about and how I'm growing. As I apply for this grant, is that an opportunity for me to just confirm, you know, that that's what I've been executing on, and that's the direction that I, you know, want to move forward in? Because at least you'll be kind of tackling two items at one time versus having it set out as a separate activity.
Right. And I would even say, you know, in this day and age, Google is your friend, right? So there's nothing wrong with Googling good examples of business model canvas templates, right? Or going through opportunities like live.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, shifting to some of the work that Brand St. Louis focuses on, and the one-on-one personal advising and coaching that you provide your clients with. one thing that we talked about, and I wanted to wait to kind of lay some foundation around this topic, but in an article by Forbes.com, and this was an article at the fall of 2020, and they were saying how the majority Black women-owned firms grew by 67% from 2007 to 2012, compared to 27% of all women. That is major. And 50% from 2014 to 2019, representing the highest growth rate of any female demographic during the time frame. So Black women are leading the pack in regards to starting these businesses. However, article by Black Enterprise that was drafted January of 2020, and according to the most recent data available from the U.S. Federal Reserve, Black business owners are denied loans by banks more frequently than any other racial group reported. And they give an example of a family who had over $2,000 annually in profits, but the bank didn't give them a loan. But the other trend is that we have minority, underrepresented entrepreneurs who have some funding, and they have credit scores of 750 and above, still being denied funding. But then you have venture capitalists who are also giving opportunities for individuals to pitch, but I don't think we are even aware, we being those from underrepresented populations, that we can participate. And then when we are participating, we are not equipped to pitch on a level as others. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot.
Right.
It's quite the environment we're in, right? That you're painting. We want to start businesses. We're putting 120% into it. We're growing our business, but yet we're faced with, a number of challenges from, banking to VC to, that knowledge and awareness gap. So yes, your stats definitely outline the world that we're navigating all the time. I would say that's kind of why Brand of St. Louis was founded, because we want to bridge the gap between these entrepreneurs so that they could become more lendable, so that they are more aware of the resources that are out there and they're more equipped to apply for them. And that's why we started the Startup League Rewards program, so that even when we are rejected in those moments where we're vulnerable and take a chance, Brand of St. Louis will give you a little bit of incentive to try again the next time, because resiliency is something that I think we're strong in, but it's a challenge when you're navigating spaces with people who don't look like you, right? Because like you mentioned, Nikki, we're often pursuing entrepreneurship from a place of passion, right? So we want to be around people where we feel the most comfortable, right? Like we love our clients. We want to give them something that we love about ourselves. And these banking industries and these VC industries, I mean, they're not necessarily going to overlap with where we feel comfortable. So Brand, we try to serve as that middle ground and be that place where you could come and, share what worked well about your experience with the banker and what didn't work well. And like, what did they tell you? Like, how can we translate that? If there's any communication gaps, and the same from a accelerator or VC standpoint. Just be there for them to provide that sense of support and be a network for them.
And I would also add, we're not naive to think that those industries that we're talking about can't change, right? So there's always that optimistic hope. While we are creating solutions, products, and services for our people and our communities based on what they need, we also know that those institutions need to learn and pivot how to offer products, solutions, and services for our communities. So I think that's another piece of DEI consulting that we dive into for a lot of these entrepreneur support organizations who say, hey, we want to attract more Black and Brown entrepreneurs to our programs. And, I think we're at a point right now in the world where everyone's raising their hands to say, yes, I'm ready to do the racial equity work in entrepreneurship. And I think that next step of, okay, well, let's walk through your services. Let's walk through your board. Show me your staff. Show me your marketing plans, right? So it gets back to the same things we're talking to our entrepreneurs about. If you are truly looking to hit this target demographic, help me understand what you're doing intentionally to support that effort. And I think that's where we get to be in the middle and bridge that gap on both sides to really find those right opportunities for growth.
That is amazing. And to know that I mean, this is truly niched down to help both sides, but to bring them together. I'm sure many of us have heard either someone or a business or our corporation say, we're looking, but where do we find? And fill in that blank, and it's like, wait a minute, do you know I'm around some amazing people doing some amazing things who happen to fit what you're looking for? So to have now like a destination for the clients, the entrepreneurs, and for the corporations and the funders to land in. I applaud the both of you for taking that's heavy lifting, but I am so secure in knowing that we're in good hands with the two of you.
Appreciate that. All glory to God, though.
Yes.
Amen. Amen. Now, you were talking about when the client comes to Brand St. Louis. I know that they can come for several different reasons, but say for instance, you have someone who is coming to you and they have an idea, or they have already started the launch of that idea, but not having everything in place. Walk us through, just an overview of what happens when we arrive after that first call or that email.
Yeah, that's a great question. When entrepreneurs are first onboarded to our program, one of the first things we want them to do is schedule some time with us, one-on-one, just for a quick conversation, 30 minutes, about what it is that they're doing in their business. Tell us a little bit about your product, services, challenges, and overall business goals. I think it's just good for us and the entrepreneur to just make sure that we're on the same page in terms of how Brand of St. Louis can best support and advocate for them. So that's one of the first steps that we'll do. The next thing that we'll do is share with them basically a catalog of 100 plus resources and programs in the St. Louis region, just so that they can browse and say, okay, in this guide, have I already participated in some of these programs in the last 90 days? Because if they have, they can earn points even on past experiences. So we tell them, get your points early on, but then plan for the next 60 days, 90 days of how you want to continue to work on your business, whether that be taking classes, doing a fellowship, applying for grants or accelerator programs. What are your goals in terms of engagement and kind of stepping away from working in your business and really working on your business plan and strategy.
And we'll also help them kind of get a better level set on what they can accomplish in the next 60 to 90 days, right? Because you don't want to pick 27 of those 100 plus resources, and we really have to talk to them and say, hey, feasibly speaking, which one or two may you want to focus on, and then learn from that experience, right? Debrief with us, talk to us about what went well, and then grow before you jump into the next resource, right? You don't want to just jump resource to resource. You want to learn from those experiences, build on it, and then take that next step. So we kind of help plan with them as well.
Okay, wonderful. And then once they are brought in, is there a membership process, or is it just kind of an independent formula that you're using?
Yeah, so it's a membership-based program. It's an individual focus in terms of the one-on-one aspect, but we do have kind of like a tool set that we are introducing to the entrepreneurs that they can use on their own. We actually just rolled out a new workbook to entrepreneurs to help them do some self-reflection and planning. And this year, especially now that we're kind of settled into whatever COVID environment this is, definitely want to find more ways to bring the group together and have more peer support as well, because the businesses that are in our program right now are awesome. You know, we enjoy meeting with them and learning what they're doing. And, you know, we follow our clients on social media. We love hearing their stories, and we just want them to be able to have a sense of community with each other as well.
And what I really love is that, you know, we are complementary to the various ecosystem resources like WePower, like Balsa, like IT, right? So I think we are cheering on those entrepreneurs in those programs and in those cohorts because there's that sense of community going to these different programs and seeing people who look like you. And I think that's something that we celebrate every time we see our pipeline partners and our sponsor organizations highlighting and celebrating some of our Black and brown entrepreneurs. It's very rewarding. And I know that there is a sense of community with St. Louis businesses. So we're happy.
That's good. Yeah. And when we talk about them becoming a part of this community and getting prepared, and you being that launch pad to get them into the right places just within this community, what would you say is a recommendation for individuals to do that they need to be prepared before they come to you, though?
That's a good question.
That is a great question.
I would probably lean to the business model canvas, right? Do you know a high level explanation or even your pitch? Do you have a pitch for your business? Do you know who you're serving? Do you know what your product is? And do you know why you started this business? Start with your why. And, you know, I think that'll at least help them figure out, okay, this is what you say that you want to do. This is where you say you want to go. Let's find that right next step resource for you. But I think the first step is, do you know exactly what you want to do? Do you know exactly what your product is? Do you know exactly what your service is? And a lot of times people think that they know, and then you work on your pitch, and then you find out that you really just know you want to be in this industry. Yeah. And maybe you're not sure about your product, right? And that allows us to really start there first.
Yeah. And I would also add, you know, maybe reflecting on the question on if they are ready for advice, right? And being in a relationship with an organization who really wants to help them take their business to the next level, and is going to be asking questions and in a way that we hope the entrepreneurs will take either the questions or the advice that we're giving them and actually be willing to apply it to their business. And I would say it's okay if you're not looking for advice in every aspect of your business. There's, like, for me personally in brand, there's things that I feel like, you know, we're somewhat strong in right now, and other areas that I really want to focus on for our growth. So I think just a willingness to be vulnerable with us as business advisors, and then take some of the homework or the next steps that we're recommending, and at least be willing to try it out and give us feedback on whether or not it worked, you know, because we definitely don't want, we want what we're providing to be valuable, right? Valuable to wherever you are in your business, and just being transparent and willing to talk to us about where you have opportunities, I think is kind of also a part of that first step.
Chavelle, you bring up a great point in regards to the vulnerability. And that's a word that's on my radar this whole year. But when it comes to your business, as I mentioned earlier, we're so close to it. We are so passionate about it, even though we can't explain it clearly all the time. And I can see how someone would be very nervous, but I see it as a blessing to where the two of you are able to kind of poke holes. Because at some point you're going to get stopped if you don't do it at the beginning. That's just my thoughts. And so, yeah. So anyone who's coming to you for help, you're coming for help, right? Like, you're here for help, right? So consider, we are here just to help you, not to embarrass you, not to expose your wrongdoing. As I said earlier, like, I don't know, you know, when I started, company, I had no idea. And what's interesting, they were saying how in another article, the number of the LLCs, and here, let me see, I was trying to, government, so this is data, there has been 3.2 million applications for employer identification numbers, which is the required EIN number you have to have an official business. And that was as of fall 2020, like 3.2 million EIN numbers. So we know that part. We'll get all that part together, but to have someone actually poke holes, like I said, and to reel us in from la la land, if I can use that term, to actually, because I'm telling you, we have businesses, but we're not making money.
Right.
We're
No,
actually spending more money than we're even making.
yeah. Yeah, you're spot on. Sometimes, we have to ask clients, are you profitable, right? It could be an awkward conversation. Are you pre-revenue, or, do you have revenue? And what are your goals around continuing to make money and just being sustainable? I think sometimes we get into the habit of doing activities in our business and not being clear on how those activities tie to our revenue model. So that's something that we ask our clients about too when they share their plans and their strategy. Just like, okay, is this going to be a part of your full service offerings down the line? Just being there to help them do exactly what you're describing, Nikki. Just be as crystal clear on their strategy and help them with those core business competencies to complement the passion and the product that we know that they're going to do a good job delivering. Of course, we can help in that aspect too, but we just want to make sure that the foundation is strong so that they can continue to build on top of it.
Yeah. Now, you two being the leaders of getting entrepreneurs on, level ground, and you having the business of doing that, knowing what you know now, even as entrepreneurs yourself, building this ecosystem, what would you have done different now that you know what you know? If I can get a response from each of you.
I think
as you look at each other.
I think from my perspective, what I would have done differently, I would have started to offer some way to provide mini grants. And even now we're getting into private lending even sooner, because I think honestly, the capital tied to the technical assistance is huge, right? And I think when you think about how to really support businesses and entrepreneurs in this community, you have to help with the financial piece.
Okay.
And then complement it with the advice, because it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure
those levels.
I'm excited that we're getting into private capital investments and private lending through some of our partners and supporters. And I think both the mini grants and both the potential patient capital loans, I would love to do that sooner. And you can only do so much with your own capacity, but we're always looking for partners and investors to help support that effort, because money is a major issue. Let's be honest.
Yeah. And what's crazy is not always a lot of money.
Yep. Right.
Just initially, it's not. And that's the part I've been realizing, like, man, like if we could, like $1,000 here, $5,000 there, to where you're reading a paper and someone has landed 1.2 million. You're like, what? They don't look like us, but how can we get there? So that's great. Chavelle?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I agree with Philip's, answer in terms of what we could have offered. I would add, personally, I would have engaged more people or asked for help earlier. I think whether that's hiring contractors to do work that I was holding to myself, or holding the release of the product until it was perfect. I think just being willing to, share share the workload with others, create our own jobs. I think that too long, I wanted to do everything myself because I thought that that was the only way to get it done. So I'm so happy and grateful for the moment that I realized that. I think that it really helped the business grow when we started to think more about, okay, who really is good in this one thing, so that we can, contract this work out and focus on the areas where we feel the strongest in.
And special thanks to Christy Maxfield and Purpose First Advisors.
Love her. Love her.
And the sponsor of our program.
Yes.
That's awesome. And that is probably one area, Chavelle, that you have mentioned. If we all could embrace that concept earlier, no matter how small you are, and really the smaller you are, like I said earlier, we're doing everything. And to understand, like, no one's gonna, to me, my thing is what God has given you is yours. And if somebody, like, there's nothing new under the sun. And so if somebody takes an idea, it's still not gonna deliver in the way you would deliver. But you do need help to deliver it. And so great point. I learned that when too late too. Now you talk about partnerships. What kind of partners are you looking for? Like who's ideal partners?
Yeah, I would say our ideal partners really are committed to racial equity and entrepreneurship, because I think those are the insights that we're building on while we're being intentional with who we're working with as those entrepreneurs in the program. So I think those who are truly open to that and have Black and Brown entrepreneurs in their programs that they're working with, or at least have a desire to attract more of our community members to be a part of their program,
And then are members able to come? Is it on a rolling basis or is it a set times?
We accept new members on a rolling basis. So at any time they can go to brandofstl.com/startup league and sign up directly from the website if they're interested in joining.
Okay. And then people can learn more about all these amazing offerings by visiting where?
brandofstl.com.
Wonderful. Now, as we begin to wrap up our time just in this space, there's a question that I always ask my guests, and it is insight and instruction or an aha moment that you can share to help someone in the nick of time. And so I'll approach this separately to each of you, giving you each a chance to respond. What advice would you give to help an entrepreneur in the nick of time with next steps, just from wherever that first thought that pops in your mind, and some advice or instruction?
That's a good question.
I would say stay persistent, especially if you love this entrepreneurship thing or love your product. You're going to have failures. It's not about how many times you fail, it's about how many times you get up and try again and try a new strategy and learn from your failures.
Yeah, that's a great one. And, I would suggest, really think about your why.
Okay.
Think about why you're in this. There's a great book called Start With Why. Stay grounded in that.
Very good. Yes.
Stay grounded in that, because that's what's going to keep you going. And that's what's going to attract your team members, your future partners, your future co-founders, right? So stay true to your why, and you will naturally find the right partners, the right people that you need to work with and to kind of thrive. So stay grounded in that. Yep.
Wonderful. And then last question, when we think about these partners and these members, why should they trust you, Brands of St. Louis, to come and align their vision and their product and or service, whether it's from a lender or from a recipient's perspective?
I would say just based on our backgrounds, honestly, Chavelle is a genius with performance improvement, with process management, with operations. So that skill set is critical for every business, every organization. And then, with my financial background, especially in business banking, I've done the role of assessing businesses, looking through their financials, determining what capital makes sense for them. So, I have that background. And I also know the industry and what they're looking for, what they're not looking for, to really focus on what does it look like to really get capital. And, you know, I think both of us are entrepreneurs, and we have this startup nature where we've gone through a lot of the ecosystem resources, right? To really figure out how to launch our business. So we have that insight, not to mention having the idea of what it feels like to be a minority in those spaces, right? And I think you can't underrepresent that impact. So really helping be that mentor to know, hey, it's okay to be the only one who may look like you in a space. And you have to learn how to leverage the connections you can make, while also knowing that it doesn't always have to be that way. So you can always look for those more diverse spaces and bring people who look like you and your team. So I think that being both of our backgrounds, I think we're really set up well to support the entrepreneurs that we are looking to support intentionally.
And I love that, you know, both of you, as you mentioned in your introductions, you know, you're building and expanding these offerings, even in a city that you're learning and building relationships. So, oh my God, that alone, to be able to say, this is our portfolio that we can extend to you, whether it's from, again, the partner side or from the member side, quite impressive. All the work that you've done and the connections and I mean, when you use the word ecosystem, it is that. It is an ecosystem for all that you're doing. And I just applaud the two of you. I look forward to learning about all that you have going on to come. And it's so interesting to be on the outside looking in and following you. I get the newsletter and I'm like, this is so cool because we've seen how you have grown it and morphed it and pivoted, but it's still in the same alignment of what you were doing, but it has totally, you've niched it down. So you are not just talking a talk. You are truly, those who are listening, they are walking the walk. Like they have literally started from scratch in a region that was not home, and built this. And I just, again, I applaud you. I pray that God continues to enlarge your territory and just shower you and overwhelm you with resources as you are doing. This is hard work, because this is not easy. It is, you know, some people will say, oh my gosh, you know, as you find, you know, you just want to, as we mentioned, start an LLC and have this passion, but to have impact and results in the manner in which you are, and you're able to actually document that and share it out. Kudos. Yes. This platform is a home for you. So anything that is going on from this moment forward, do not hesitate to reach out to us to share that information, and we'll share it with our network as well. Okay.
We appreciate the opportunity to join.
Yes.
Looking forward to more opportunities to connect.
Yes, looking forward to it. Chavelle, Phillip, thank you so much. The co-owners and the beauties and the brains behind Brand of St. Louis. I am your host, Nikki Roach. We thank you so much for joining in for another segment of Conversations in the Nick of Time. Thank you. Salute to Sparkman Pathway to Careers, as well as KSTL 690. Don't forget, you already possess everything you need to be successful. It's just a matter of tapping into it and living and walking it out as you define it, not as the world. Until next time, be good, be great, show up, and share out.